Due to its nature as a Japanese-only release, Genealogy of the Holy War's characters do not often have that much motion in the fandom at large. If you were to ask the average Fire Emblem fan what the hell a Fabale is, they probably would not be able to answer you. But every now and again, a character from that game manages to have a bigger impact, and Ayra is one of those characters, being a very popular unit among people who have played the game, and though the Choose Your Legends poll from Fire Emblem Heroes is far from the greatest indicator of popularity, she has placed in the top 100 every single year, giving credence to the idea that Ayra manages to break the mold from other characters in her game and be well known. Or, at least, more known. She's known, is what she is. And today, I wanted to take a look at why Ayra leaves such an impact on people. So sit down and enjoy today's character analysis episode on the Princess of Isaac, Ayra. And before the video begins, please remember to leave a like and comment on the video and subscribe to the channel. I know asking for that before you even watch the video is tacky, so I'm not asking, I'm threatening. If you don't like, comment, and subscribe, I will break into your house at night and turn on all the lamps in your house so that the light bulb quickly drains from all of them, and you'll have to spend $10 whole to get a new box of light bulbs. You hear me? $10!
There is no meme. This is just a threat.
Ayra first appears in Chapter 1 of Genealogy of the Holy War, and her introduction is fairly standard. She's not a bad guy, but she's fighting on the side of her enemies. She has to fight you because she is a princess who has had her nephew kidnapped. And if she wants him returned safely, she has to turn her blade against you. Her introduction cutscene makes it very clear that you don't actually want to hurt Ayra, but if you do, she's very powerful. With the brigand that captured her nephew saying that while Ayra has a pretty face, he knows better than to try to stand against her as an enemy, showing respect to her battle prowess. While this introduction isn't exactly novel, it is still a decent introduction nevertheless, as this kind of thing happens a lot in stories because it's an easy way for someone to clash against a hero and show off how powerful they are, without exactly being an evil person before it happens. And in classic Fire Emblem fashion, the gameplay shows this as well. Ayra isn't just told to be a powerful sword fighter, you actually feel it when she takes the field against you. Her attack speed is very high, leaving her highly likely to be able to double every unit you have. And she's not just fast, the damage behind her swings is very respectable. And if she procs her skill Astra, which allows her to attack 5 times instead of once, she's highly likely to kill anything she's staring at. She's very powerful compared to the other units you have at Chapter 1. It really shows off her strengths as a unit before you even recruit her. Though, unfortunately, it also shows her weakness as a unit, because while her ability to kill is very high, her ability to get killed is also very high. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if some players just killed Ayra by attacking her with ranged weapons and then finishing her off with Quan or something, because they just didn't know she was recruitable and was scared of what would happen if they ever let her hit them. Still, her recruitment is very neat. You have to dodge her to seize the castle behind her, and doing that is not entirely easy due to her strength that I mentioned earlier. Though this is Genealogy of the Holy War, you can save after every single turn, so you can easily rig a universe to exist where she doesn't proc Astra, but still, she's quite an intimidating map objective before you even get to use her yourself. Once the player makes sure that Shannon is safe, Sigurd will approach Ayra and tell her that she doesn't have to fight them anymore. It's here that we get a bit more of Ayra's backstory. She is the Princess of Isaac. Specifically, her older brother was the next in line to become king. However, her father, the king, was assassinated by Granvale due to a misunderstanding between an assault on one of Granvale's cities. So because of this, her brother, in a rage, waged war against Granvale, knowing damn well that he was going to lose. But because he knew he was going to lose, he made sure to get his son, the young Prince Shannon, over to Ayra's care, entrusting her with raising him so that one day he can become king after he dies. So, in order to fulfill her brother's dying wish, she aligns with Sigurd and decides that she'll put her faith in his protection, though she remarks if he ever crosses her, she will kill him. And I really like that Sigurd still respects Ayra's strength. He doesn't say that such a thing could never happen and that he would never hurt her, but he remarks that war is cruel, and he just hopes that that kind of outcome will never happen. He doesn't want to face Ayra either, and I find that it's really cool that her swordplay is constantly respected by friend and foe alike. I also like how her backstory plays into the themes of Yggdrasil as a whole. A big part of the Yggdrasil duology is how the problems of family and previous generations are constantly thrown onto the people who come after, and they don't really have a choice to live up to them or not. Sure, Ayra technically could just leave Shannon to the wolves, but her brother kinda threw him at her, and she has no choice but to look after him, much like how Byron never intended Sigurd to get into the mess that happened, but it happened anyway. This all comes to a head much later than Ayra's introduction with Seliph and his remarking about how he doesn't want to be a fighter because that's not the life he wants for himself, but Luwin telling him he kinda doesn't have a choice. Ayra's backstory on its own might not be the most interesting, but it's a never-ending string of backstories like that do get tackled by the game later on. Selip's outrage might not have hit the same if it was just Seliph going through this, but characters constantly in Fire Emblem 4 are dealing with the problems of family members putting their problems on them, and I think it's really cool to think about how every piece builds up to that. Ayra has one more conversation in her join map with Quan. For the most part, it's a nice world-building conversation, where she remarks on all the stuff I told you about why her father was assassinated, and why her brother's going off to war, but I do like how, at the end of it, Ayra does remark about why she's protecting Shannon. It's not just because the duty was thrown on her, though that's certainly a part of it, it's because she truly believes if Shannon takes the throne, then her country of Isaac has a future. It shows that Ayra, despite being very blunt, direct, and kind of pissed off during all of her conversations to this point, though it's understandable, she does still have a kind heart at her core. Much like Sigurd and Quan and every other major player in Gen 1, she does have very good motives in what she wants to do. And that does make it kind of likable. Plus, people really seem to like it when characters are given children that aren't theirs, but they have to parent them all the same. Ryotaro Dojima and Yuna Arakami, Mito and Gon Freeze, Donald and /or Scrooge McDuck and Huey, Dewey, and Louie. There's just something about this dynamic that people really like. Maybe it's because a lot of people's parental figures aren't actually their parents, so seeing other forms of media represent that's really nice. I don't know, but Ayra's one of those just like them, and I think that's nice for her character. Ayra doesn't have any lines of dialogue in Chapter 2, so I can go into her unit a bit more in detail. As I alluded to earlier, she seems to be your normal glass cannon. Incredibly high power, incredibly low bulk. But she does have another problem, and that is that she is footlocked. In Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War, the maps are huge. It's called Horse Emblem for a good reason. Your mounted units are just much better at getting to places, and will often leave your non-mounted units behind. And while Ayra's ability to kill things is one of the most impressive in the first generation, Sigurd with a silver sword, Medale with a killer bow, there's a bunch of units that are more than capable of killing enemies. But here's the thing, I don't give a shit because Ayra is really fun. Once she gets a Brave Sword, that can proc Astra as well for 10 total attacks at once, and there's just something really fun about that. Fire Emblem fans love gambling. Our entire series is built on hoping to God hit rates, dodge rates, critical rates, skill activation percentages, all go in our favor. So even if Ayra isn't the most efficient unit, a lot of FE4 players love using her because she's fun. We don't give a shit that we have to slow down our advance to make her useful. We'll do it a million times because it's fun. And that goes a long way in a character's memorability, especially in a series like Fire Emblem. And I think it's worth mentioning because of that. And speaking of the Brave Sword, it's her next moment in the story. In Chapter 3, she can be approached by Lex or Hone, both of them offering her the Brave Sword as a gift. With Lex, she's initially very rude and curt, thinking that he's just trying to worm his way into her pants with fancy trinkets, and she tells him to go try some other woman. But once she realizes it's a Brave Sword, she tries to show a bit more gratitude for it, showing that her initial hesitation to trust anyone around her isn't an end-all be-all. If someone does something actually nice for her, she's willing to show appreciation. Though admittedly, the scene is more so memorable just because of the concept of it. The man who gifts a woman a machete is a fool every woman but one. And with Hone, she's much nicer, mainly because he doesn't just say he got her a gift, he outright gives her the Brave Sword, so there's no time for a misunderstanding to brew. The scene itself isn't the most interesting or a great dive into her character, it's just a nice scene in concept, so I thought I wanted to mention it nevertheless. Ayra doesn't have any story moments in Chapter 4, so I feel like this is a good time to bring up how I really like money, and I think I deserve your money more than you. That's right, I have a Patreon, where for as little as $3 a month, you can help support the channel and gain access to benefits, like getting your names read aloud on every episode. Just go to patreon.com/FEMSPaint or click the link in the description, and please contribute to the channel if you can. Do not feel obligated to do so, it is purely optional, just I would appreciate if you considered it. My patrons include the likes of Across the Night, Adebayo Thompson, Alex Araliga, Amu is not beating the Tails allegations, Andrew Crockett, Bean Juice, Hell on Heelys, Jae Hyun, Despacito 2, Larmachi, Ly-7ing Bolt, Morga Lorgan, Played Arrow, Played is pronounced like the pattern, Ranger Man Sam, Sean Vossi, Shen Lu, Viri the Artist, Yugirl Owen, Brentendo11, Drew Hack, Fire Emblem Lord, Ginger, Gugu Gaga, Cornelia Milkers 92, Inverse, Lev Maverick, Maple Knight, Sombret, and Upscale Furry Trash. Thank you all for your continued support, and let's get back to the video. Once you get to Chapter 5, it's the end of the first generation. An important thing to note about all conversations in Chapter 5 is that everyone in the player's army knows that something's about to go wrong. No one knows that they're all marching to their deaths, no one other than Claude, but they still know that they might not make it back. A lot of conversations are had with the understanding that good times are probably not ahead. So with that undercurrent being known, her conversation with Sigurd is quite simple. He's confused as to why the hell she's even there. Shannon, alongside Sigurd's son Seliph, and Ayra's twin children, Larcey and Ulster, are being sent to Isaac for safekeeping. So Sigurd wonders why she's still there, given that her promise to her brother was a big deal. She says that Shannon's grown up now, and that for better or for worse, Ayra's going to fight along Sigurd to the very end, showing a nice bit of growth from the start of the game when she was hesitant to trust him at all. Going from, I'm going to kill you if you ever cross me, to I'm content dying by your side is a nice little arc. And you don't really need to see too much of it happen on screen either. That's kind of how Genealogy's writing works, and I think it does a lot with the little bit that it has. Ayra also has 3 optional conversations, depending on who the player makes her lover. Her conversations are with Lex, Arden, and Hone. The Lex one is definitely my favorite, as in it, Lex expresses some thoughts that Ayra shouldn't be up there, similar to Sigurd, though his exact framing is that their children are being sent away with Shannon, and that Ayra should look after him. Ayra rightfully calls out Lex for his hypocrisy. If he's so worried about the children, he should be the one going with them too. Saying that Ayra needs to go back is just because she's the woman and she should be watching the children, and it's not fair. Lex actually completely agrees and apologizes, and it's clear that it's out of genuine worry and concern for Ayra and their children. But Ayra says, much like with Sigurd, that she's going to fight this to the very end. A warrior's life is all she knows, so if her last moments are with Lex, that's just how it's gonna be. I really like this for one major reason. This is the most selfish thing Ayra could possibly do. And I don't mean that as a slight to her character per se, but objectively, running off and fighting a battle you know you can't win is exactly what her brother did and forced Shannon onto her. And just like that, Ayra is off fighting a battle she knows she can't win and forcing her children onto someone else, in this case Oyfe, Shannon, and Ideen. I like that it's not just evil fathers like Langabolt, or faceless NPCs like Ayra's brother that do this kind of thing. Good people can make selfish decisions. It helps lead into the narrative of FE4 that I was talking about earlier, and Yggdrasil makes it clear that bad decisions does not make someone a bad person. Sigurd makes a lot of wrong decisions. Quan's bad decisions are kind of the crux of Fire Emblem 5's story. Ayra's choice to leave her children behind is not a good decision, but that doesn't make her a bad person, it makes her a flawed one, and I think examining that is very interesting. I really like that genealogy makes it clear that it's not just evil parents screwing over their children. A otherwise good parent can make one bad move that absolutely has an effect on their children. And the fact that Ayra isn't there for her children is a big part of Larcey's character specifically. So I kind of really like this exploration into Ayra's mindset, and I think it plays with what the story of genealogy is trying to be really effectively. Plus, a warrior going off for their last stand is just kind of a cool concept. It's been done in all kinds of stories since the beginning of time, because someone facing down the end of their life with a smile and a blade in hand is just awesome. And the fact that Ayra's a woman does make it even cooler. This kind of brave last stand is almost always done by a man. A lot of warrior women in these kind of stories hang up the blade for a more domestic life. You need look no further than Fire Emblem itself for plenty of examples of that. So Ayra being a warrior to the very end does make her different to a lot of her contemporaries in a way that makes her stand out really nicely. I really like Ayra's conversation with Lex, and it shows a lot of her character in very little time. And I'm not the only one that thinks that way. I will admit, the sources for what I'm about to say are my ass and it came to me in a dream. But Lex and Ayra, at least for a while, were definitely one of, if not the most popular couples from Fire Emblem 4. I don't know if that's still true now. Fire Emblem Heroes has really given Sigurd and Deirdre some sauce that they did not have originally, but they're still a very popular duo, and I think it's because this conversation shows both of their characters very well. So, that's a very hard act for her other two lover conversations to follow, and they don't really. They're not bad though. Her lover conversation with Arden is more so just sweet. Arden is complaining about trudging along in the desert in his heavy armor, which, fair, and Ayra just says that he looks so dashing and manly and he should keep it up. And Arden, in turn, talks about how much he loves Ayra and how beautifully womanly she is. Which, Ayra has a lot of adjectives that can describe her, but womanly is not one of them. In fact, she thinks he's joking with her at first, and he just says that he truly, truly loves her, and his blunt declaration, even though they're married, still causes Ayra to get flustered. It's sweet. Ayra's the stern, strong woman, and she gets flustered and starts slurring over her words when Arden is so blunt and direct. It's not an uncommon archetype, but it's still sweet to look at, and it pairs well with all of her more serious scenes. Ayra's allowed to be love-struck, you know? As a treat. And her final lover conversation with Holn isn't the most interesting for her. It more so just reveals that Holn has some very, very distant relation to the Crusader Odd, remarking that he's nobility of some kind. Though you could actually know that well before this conversation if you checked his stats screen and saw that he has minor odd blood. It's not great, it's not bad, it's just kinda there. And that's about all Ayra does in the first generation before dying. Unless she didn't actually die. No, she probably died. The reason that there's any question is her child, Larsae, truly believes in her heart that Ayra is still alive. And the way that it's framed, at least in my opinion, didn't seem as though the game thinks that's true. It comes off that Larsae is coping. Because her mother was never in her life, she wants to believe that she's still out there somewhere. And that thought gives her some level of strength as she continues throughout her journey with Seliph. Her brother is more realistic about it, but he decides that it's not really hurting anyone for Larsae to believe in her mother, so after Larsae yells at him that Ayra's still alive, he doesn't press the point any further. I really like this conversation because it does show the relationship between the twins, but more importantly, it shows that Ayra's actions did have consequences. And even though it's just a small scene, it tells you all you need to know about how Larsae's children feel about her. And I think it's really well done because of that. So yeah, I think there's a good reason that Ayra is one of the most fondly remembered Fire Emblem 4 characters. She's got a fun unit to use, her story is relevant to the themes of the game as a whole, and is just likable on its own. She really is a complete package. She doesn't have that much writing. If you really boil it down, she only has about 8 conversations in the entire game, but that's all you really need sometimes. A lot of people fell in love with Ayra the first moment they saw those green sparkles of Astra, and honestly, I can't act like I'm any different. I would like to thank you all for making it to the end of another character analysis video. I'm sorry this one took so long to make. It's the holiday season, so I've been busy working to afford the aforementioned holiday season, and Octopath Zero came out, and it has consumed my life. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and if you would consider joining my Discord server or follow me on social media, I would greatly appreciate it. You're looking at some bits from my Discord server right now. We like to have a good time there, so feel free to consider joining. Until next time.
Change the world. My final message. Goodbye.